Hello and welcome back to the incredibly long-awaited next episode of...
It's not that long, it's been like a year and a bit, that's fine. If this was a TV show, you'd be waiting a year and a bit in between seasons sometimes.
At least we got season 2, like Firefly, right?
Yeah, which, just like Flash,
Oh,
in this season, I'm gonna be going back in time and creating a clone of myself because I don't understand causality.
And paradoxes. Anyway.
Are you wearing a Firefly t-shirt?
I am, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Cautious, sudden but inevitable betrayal.
Quite an issue.
Basically, I decided I wanted to do Comic Nom again, and I pretty much bullied Hex into doing it.
Yeah, he bullied me by going, do you want to do a video? I was like, right.
Because I wanted him to read this.
What is this?
Uncanny X-Force
I
by
didn't read this.
Remender.
I didn't read this.
I'm going to kick you in the dick really hard.
Sorry. This is all good. It's all good, Ed. You'll be fine.
No, it won't. Uncanny X-Force by Rick Remender. This is half of the run.
So this is because this, like, let's get this straight. Like, an omnibus traditionally has been one of these, right? Like a big tome, like this hardback tome. Now, at some point, what Marvel did was they decided that like these tomes was too expensive for most people, so they started producing these volumes. Like I've got the complete Iron Fist. It was literally the omnibus split into 2 chunks and sold for about £25 a chunk, rather than expecting people to pay £50 to £100 for an omnibus, which makes perfect sense, really. But it's not quite as epic on your shelf, is it?
No, I wanted the omnibus, but it was out of print at the time. I don't know if it still is. Maybe it's like that's it.
I think they're stopping doing them. From what I understand, they're ramping down the omnibuses and doing these volumes.
The next best thing was to get this. I actually have the majority of this in singles, but it would have cost me more to get the rest of them
Comics
than it would to just buy the volumes.
Yeah.
So this is one of my all-time most favourite books, and I've been trying to tell Hex for years, about what the outcomes or what splinters off because of this book, and he never showed any interest. So I pretty much tricked him into reading it. So
right, can I have this book? Can I hold this book? This I read. I'm going to say it was somewhere like probably a quarter of this book is the first story arc, which is what I've read of it. So we're not talking about the whole book, we're talking about the first story arc.
We're just talking about the first story arc, which is called the Apocalypse Solution. Right,
well, I'll say to you what my takeaway was, and you just count it as we go, right? It opens with, where is it open? It opens with us flying over the top of a canyon in what can only describe as a ping pong ball. Literally, it looks like a ping pong ball. I'm not even joking there. I feel like there's an issue missing. I feel like I'm thrown in. I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? Why is Wolverine reading the New York Times? What's that about? And generally, I feel like pace-wise, like they've done that thing that anime is so fond of doing, where they start you when the story's already going, and they're like, you'll figure it out, which works well in anime because it's expected, right? I mean, like it's a staple of the genre. Whereas, like Ghost in the Shell's terrible for that. It literally starts off halfway through the story, and you'll get a slice of it. But with a comic book, I've always expected decent exposition. So straight away, I'm like, okay, what should I have read to get to this point? So as soon as on page 1, I'm thinking, I feel like there should be something else before this. I don't know if there is. Is there another
there
book?
There are flashbacks about how they all ended up as part of X-Force.
Yeah, wasn't a fan of the opening, but that's not to say it sets it up wrong.
This book immediately follows X-Men Second Coming with the whole Avengers vs X-Men type thing.
Yeah, maybe if I'd have read that, maybe if I'd have read it in linear order, I would have been a bit more warm
that
to it.
ends with Cyclops telling Wolverine no more X-Force. And then he's like, yeah, okay, and then walks and
does he go?
immediately makes a new X-Force.
Oh, let's role play this. You tell me. I'll be Wolverine, okay? Yeah. So you tell me there's no more X-Force.
No more X-Force, no more killing.
Okay. Is that what happened?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. But like, and then it's like straight. So first of all, we're a ping pong ball with a character that I'm not familiar with. A character that, as far as I know, who is that guy?
Phantom X.
Phantom X. I've read like probably more X-Men than the majority of the people watching this video. I mean, I read the entire of the 80s of X-Men, like all of it. I've got it in print in the cupboard. You know, I mean, I read a lot of it. I'm well seasoned with X-Men.
I didn't have any idea who he was when I first.
When a character comes on with no exposition and they're just in the middle of a conversation, you kind of go, the fuck is this guy? Because I thought it was some kind of weird fucked up Gambit at first. I'm like, Gambit's looking weird because straight away you do that thing, don't you, where like your brain starts like matching characters to other characters you've read.
Yeah.
And straight away I was like, is it Gambit? And no, it's not Gambit. It's just some other guy called Phantom X, whose power set is not really explained, other than possibly he can suggest things, which does that make him a anyway? And he's got a weird spaceship that seems to be alive.
It's part of his nervous system.
Which is that his mutation? Because
Phantom X is a really confusing character.
All in all, I found that was jarring straight away. So the very first page left me going, what the fuck is this? So it didn't instantly go, oh, this is cool. It didn't open strong for me. It opened one of the weakest comic openings that I've read in a long time. I feel
like the whole, like you can imagine it if you imagined it in a movie, it just cuts the canyon and the ship comes screaming over.
Yeah, it's like the opening of Jedi or something. Yeah, it's like the opening. Yeah, I get what they're trying to do, but it didn't take for me. Straight away as well, I didn't like the artwork. I felt like, I don't know how you felt, but I'm not even sure who the artist is in this book on that particular title actually. But I felt like it was someone trying to do Alex Ross. Is it Alex Ross? Yeah, I think it's Alex Ross. I felt like it was someone trying to do like a take on the hyper real artwork and not quite nailing it. So that again, so that's the first page.
Oh, okay. The artist is Leonardo Manco, however it's pronounced.
Leonardo Manco.
Whereas the artist of the actual story arc is Jerome Apena.
Apena? It's not a real word. I mean, like past the first page. So from the bit where they land at the new secret base. That was the bit where I was alright with that bit. That's when I was like, oh, okay, I started to warm to it then, because I'm like, familiar characters, I'm seeing Psylocke, I'm seeing Archangel, and then it cuts to a bit of Deadpool, and so I'm like, okay, Deadpool wears white now, fair enough, whatever. So, what?
Grey.
It's not white.
It's grey and black.
Grey and black.
X-Force. Grey and black.
Grey and black. That's fucking badly thought out, isn't it? We're a super secret organisation of X-Men. What should we wear? I don't know, something everyone can see. That's
Black Ops.
Why are they wearing white then?
It's not white, it's different shades of black.
I'm just saying, if you're all doing Black Ops, right, maybe you should wear something black, or not wear a uniform, because if you're Black Ops, you don't want people to know what club you're part of. So if you're all wearing a fucking uniform, I'm not wrong here, am I?
No, I agree, it's just come on, it's fucking X-Men.
No, bollocks, don't buy that. The 90s X-Men look like less of a group than these guys do. Yeah. Anyway, but rambling on now a bit further. I like that, and I like the setup that they instantly they let you know that Psylocke and Archangel are in a relationship. Did a great job of nailing that early on. So you're like, oh, okay, so this is where we are within this story. I'm like, okay, cool. I was vaguely aware they had a relationship, but it does seem to be retconned out in the current continuity.
No.
Is it still in there?
No.
Okay, cool.
In Uncanny X-Men, it's quite a big part of the current storyline.
So anyway, so as I start reading it, then it starts to be the story's basically about spoilers, guys. The story is about them trying to find and kill the reincarnation of Apocalypse. Are they aware it's a child?
Nope.
Right.
Nope.
Because when they get, jumping forward a little bit to the end of the arc now. When they get there, and it's a child. Nobody seems to go, holy shit, you're a kid. It just seems to be like, oh, there's a kid Apocalypse. Yeah, it's fine. And that seems to be a bit like I wasn't quite sure if they were expecting that. Which I that's interesting, but I just felt like it should have been more of a shock to them.
Well, I mean, to me, when I read it, it came across as a shock, especially to Deadpool.
Yeah.
Because he was kind of like, Deadpool has no qualms in killing people. He's like, yeah, woohoo, I kill people, lols. And then it's kind of like, but not kids. And it's like, for me, like, I've read a shitload of Deadpool, but this book is where I've seen some of the most growth of Deadpool as a character. Yeah,
there's also a bit halfway through where they're fighting the final horseman, the horseman of the Apocalypse, that Apocalypse had in Cold Storage this whole time, didn't use. Again.
No, it's the whole, how do you pronounce it? Is it Akaba? Yeah. The whole Apocalypse.
The Apocalypse cult.
And everything.
So that's fine, but there's they go have a little flashback about these horsemen. They're like, he picked them up ages ago when he was a grown up, and he put them in cold storage and was like, just get them out if ever they're needed. And I just feel like if they're your ultimate weapons, wouldn't you have used them? the last 15 times he was written about. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Or maybe he did it just before he died last time. I don't know where it fits in, bro. I was a bit like...
Every time he has different...
No, but he's a kid, and then it flashes back to him being a grown-up, collecting these people throughout history. And then he goes, just put them in the freezer till I need them. And that's the bit I was like, oh, okay, that's a bit... maybe again, I felt like I missed something. Like, maybe there was a whole bit where he was preparing for his own death somehow. And I was like, is that what's happening? And I think that would have been actually a more interesting story if he had prepared for his own reincarnation like this.
Yeah, if they'd I can agree with that. If they'd have made it made it more aware that he was aware that he would die and reincarnate.
Or he thought it wasn't possible, but being a man who plans for everything, you know. So there's a lot of that going on, which I think would have been more interesting than what they did. But what they did was he just put them in deep freeze, and now he thawed them out. And there's a big stone man.
But he hasn't done anything.
No, he hasn't. His cabal has.
He's essentially been
a kid
nursed. School.
Yeah, by
a cult.
It's being raised by the AI of the ship. But again, as someone who hasn't read this continuity, I was like, where the fuck's this ship AI come from? What's this about? But again, I don't feel like it's badly written. I feel like there's a whole chunk of more stuff before it I should have read. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but that's how I felt reading this. Let's get to the things I liked, right? There's a bit where Deadpool does possibly the weirdest and most Deadpool thing ever, where they go to the blue zone on the moon, which is the area of the moon with oxygen, right? And apparently Earth-like gravity, which they don't really cover either. But I'm sure that's not part of the blue zone in the history. But now it's got Earth-like gravity. And the blue zone's the bit where obviously the moon's got oxygen in the blue zone. Great. And then Deadpool's there, and Archangel's fallen. It's all going wrong. I was getting beaten up, and Deadpool goes, "I've got an idea," and throws a fucking tent with a picture of his mask on it. He's literally got a Deadpool tent. Like, I can only assume he thinks of it as a mobile command centre. Because I'm just like, bravo Deadpool, bravo. And it's not his current mask either. It's his old red and black mask. And he's just like, woof, and it's like, pop-up tent. And then he drags Archangel inside it. Like, first of all, it's not raining because you're on the moon. There's no reason to put the tent out to do the next thing. Because what he does is, he pulls him in and starts telling him how to look after him. He rolls up his sleeve, slices bits of his own skin off and starts feeding it to Archangel, going, "Your baby bird, your baby bird." I'm like, I don't know what you think you're doing here. I'm not sure. No, I assume the plan was he gets his healing factor out and he inserts it in someone else's body. But if you chomp on your mate's arm, you're not going to get better.
How do you know?
Well, I don't know.
Mutant.
Okay,
but not a mutant. But is a mutant.
Well, that's part. Is that part of his existing power set? That if you eat his flesh, you get his power. Is that something in his existing power set?
Deadpool's regeneration has been used for so many different things. Like his blood's been used to bring people back.
Yeah.
His blood's been used to bring Cable back to life.
So it does seem like it's all.
It
does appear that his blood has healing properties. So I'm going to let that go. But it was so funny where he's just like, Deadpool pop up 10, and he's like, drags him in there, and he's like, eat some of this, baby, but then he starts pouring Mountain Dew and Pop Rocks in his mouth, and I'm like, this is classic Deadpool. Like, I'm not even a massive fan of Deadpool, but I was like, that's just brilliant. That's just so, like, I feel like the writer was like, and then Deadpool does this. I almost feel like Deadpool popped out the page and wrote that bit himself. It was brilliant.
He literally broke the fourth
wall. He literally broke the fourth wall with a pen and just wrote that bit himself. It was genuinely a moment where I was so grossed out but entertained. All I could think of was like, oh, it's brilliant. That is the most Deadpool scene I've ever read. I did
like to think that when they were fighting the Horseman, it was a Pestilence that was fighting Deadpool. He's like, here's a disease, and he's like, I'm Deadpool, and it's like, okay, here's like 4,000 more, and he's just kind of like, yeah. I won't die, but this is really fucking painful.
There was a few other bits. As the story goes on, they're fighting the Four Horsemen. They're fighting the Four Horsemen: Pestilence, War, Death, Famine, War, yeah, whatever. I like that. I got a bit confused at one point who was fighting who and which one was which power set. That got a bit jumbled up at the start, but then they sort of break away where Psylocke analyses their brains and sort of gets their backstory, and I was like, this is a nice break from the violence. It's like a little bit like in Man of Steel when you've got the action figures hitting each other at the end. It's like if you had a little break for something else halfway through, it might have been better. And that's what they did in this book. They had a breakdown where they fill in the backstory of these characters.
Do you not think that like Psylocke's powers work so much better in print than they do like on screen?
Well, I think that's true of most superheroes.
Like we've read the discussion where whenever Professor X uses his powers, he just goes,
yeah.
Whereas in print and in
Don't
cartoons,
you
you
think
actually
though?
can visualise
If
it.
in the films, every time they use their powers, if they actually superimpose the comic book animation somehow, I think
It's
that'd
easily
work.
done. I mean, you look.
Yeah.
I hate to bring this up, but like if you look in the X-Men Apocalypse film, Psylocke has the side blades,
Yeah, well, that's not something people are supposed to see.
but you just put that over her head when she's
Yeah.
doing the thing.
Because
like
also,
a fucking purple tiara.
yeah, actually, I'm not going to get off topic here because that's a whole separate issue with what I did to Psylocke in the film.
Yeah, no. Regardless,
Olivia Munn, if you're out there and you ever find yourself single, call me. Or if you're not single, I don't mind. I'll be single if you call, regardless.
just throw anyone in there.
Whoever I've got, get out! Olivia's here! Yeah. Anyway, off topic, I hope you can edit this shit. I really do.
We'll see. Sometimes it's funny.
It's a broken conversation of randomness. The next thing I liked in the story was I liked Apocalypse's team. I liked the group, the cult. It was obvious that this cult was manipulating the child Apocalypse because they were raising him evil. And essentially, they're not disobeying him so much as they're obeying the old him and ignoring the new him, which is interesting.
It's interesting because you see the kid and he's got, you know, that typical childlike innocence.
Yeah.
He doesn't understand why X-Force are here. He
Yeah.
doesn't understand what's going on. He doesn't understand why people don't like him and blah 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 blah. So it's quite cool to see how the cult influences him, which kind of has a bit of like real life truth to it about how.
Yeah, it's absolutely. I mean, he's not actually up for killing people. He's more interested in playing with action figures and looking at the posters on his wall, which is true of any kid. The bit that actually sort of like I went, oh, okay, was when it all comes to a crescendo. The good guys win. They find Kid Apocalypse, and then Psylocke's like, I'm not killing a kid, for fuck's sake. Where I'm like, I would in a heartbeat. Because if I like all of a sudden I was like, look, Adolf Hitler's being reincarnated, and I was like, is it really Adolf Hitler? And so I went, yeah, here's absolute categoric evidence with Adolf Hitler. He's even got a little moustache, right? And someone's like, just shoot him. Would you be like, yeah, no problem, bang. I wouldn't fucking hesitate. No hesitation whatsoever.
See, I understand her side of things. She's like, well, he's being educated this way. We could.
Namdy-pamdy bollocks, shoot him, right? And then Wolverine's like, oh, I'm going to kill him. He's like, no, actually, I've thought about it in these last few seconds, and you've really talked me with his claws out. You've really talked me round. I'm like, really, Wolverine? But like,
Archangel wants to kill him. Sorry,
yeah,
Angel
but
wants to
knowing
kill him.
knowing that Wolverine is also the headmaster of the Xavier School in this timeline or thereabouts, you can go, yeah, okay. So knowing that, I can kind of go, he's a teacher. He's a father figure. He is grown as a character, so I'm like, okay, I'll buy that he'd hesitate, right? More than Psylocke, actually. But then, like, Angel's like, no, I'm gonna fucking kill him. I'm gonna put this in his head. I'm like, yeah.
Angel has perfect.
Yeah,
reason
his motivation
to
is
decide,
that
Apocalypse fucked with him in the past.
Apocalypse has literally fucked up his entire life, changed his mutation, and made him a killer. So I can see why he'd have a gripe with him. And I'm like, yeah. But then while they're arguing, that Phantom X guy just like, bang.
To be fair, when I read that, I was kind of like,
I thought as the gunshot hit,
it to be
Deadpool, because Deadpool's sort of out of sorts. He's sort of not even in draw. He's like, he's just sort of like sitting in the corner of this.
He's so like shocked and dumbfounded
about
what's going on, and he kind of like steps back.
He's standing in the background like,
I'm not prepared for this. What's going on?
And he's trying, obviously,
which I thought was an interesting.
He's got his own issues, so the fact that he's working through this is interesting. But when Phantom X is just like, bang, and he just, he's just again, I feel like they look around, he's going.
And everyone's just there like,
yeah, because I don't know if I'm supposed to side with him, but as a reader, I was like, you go, girl. I was like, nothing but praise for that. Bravo.
So that was the climactic conclusion to the first story arc,
which is where I stopped reading. Overall, though, now because you love this book, this is one of your favourite books. For me, there was more I disliked than liked, and I had the entire first half of the run on my shelf. And I know for a fact you've got the second half, so if I want to read this, not a problem. Don't even have to spend any money, I can just go around your house, pick up the other one and read the lot. I was pleased when it was over. I felt like the problem is, the difference is, it's the difference in readers. When you like an anti-hero, right? Where when I read comics, I like the archetypal paragon. I like the guy, I like the heroes where they will always do the right thing. They win because they have the moral high ground.
Like Angel used to be.
Like Angel used to be. All my favourite characters are heroes. They're consummate heroes. So to read a book that's entirely about anti-heroes, I literally was like, I was not interested in their struggle because I was like, you're bad guys. To me, there was so much on the cusp of the bad guys. I was like, I find it much more interesting. Like, even though Cyclops goes too far in that decade of X-Men, he was like the superhero, you know. He was still more interesting to me than this guy. Like Batman, another example. He's not an anti-hero, is he? He's like a hero, but people think he's an anti-hero. But he always does the right thing. You always know Batman will do the right thing, which is why I find it interesting. My favourite superhero is the Flash. Always does the right thing. So for me, anti-heroes aren't appealing. So I think the reason I didn't like it, because for you, it's like a wet dream. It's all your anti-heroes in one club.
Well,
so
you know,
I
Wolverine and Deadpool are two of my three most favourite characters.
I can see why, as a reader, because you like the anti-heroes and you already like these characters individually, to put all the anti-heroes in one book for you is very much something you want to read about. Whereas for someone like me who just wants the story of good versus evil, like, it was actually like not that interesting for me because I don't appreciate the type of story it's telling.
I think their outfits sum up the type of story it is. It's all about shades
grey
of
areas,
grey.
yeah. Which again, I understand the writers do that. That's
like,
pretty smart.
You have Psylocke, who would happily kill people, but like, and I'm going to spoil a lot of shit now to do with the rest of this book and maybe some things that come after. So if you don't know that,
when you edit this, put the spoiler alert like here.
This is a big turning point for Psylocke, and she's like, "That's it. I'm done. I'm not killing anymore." And that continues throughout. That's to current things. But and also in Uncanny Avengers, what causes this split between the mutants and the Avengers is the fact that they killed Kid Apocalypse. Captain America's like, what the... I mean, obviously he doesn't swear, but he's like, what the fuck, you killed a kid? And
like, even though I say I'd shoot him in the head, just because I would do that in real life doesn't mean I want my heroes to do that. I want them to be better than me. So...
Well, they didn't want to do it. It was Fantomix did it.
I just felt that, like, in the continuity of this story, I don't buy that these characters would hesitate. That was my issue. Not that, like, if like Captain America got there, was like, no, I will educate you.
I'm going to blow your mind right now. You've read Wolverine and the X-Men.
Yeah.
Yeah? You know Evan.
Yeah.
Kid Apocalypse.
Yeah.
He's not dead.
I know he's not dead, and that's again why I was like, fuck this.
Fantomix uses misdirection to make everyone believe he killed him, and he took the kid away to raise him and try and re-educate him. Because he saw him the same way he was raised as part of the Weapon Plus program.
Did they get the X to rotate it? Weapon X, and then I was like, we've already got all these artists. He just walks up to the side and just like, you know?
No, it's been like that since Wolverine broke out and caused havoc, and it's like, oh, let's start up the Weapon Plus program again.
So someone's like X. Okay, well that's pretty cool. And I didn't see that coming, honestly. If I had carried on reading that, I probably would have been a bit more impressed with that story.
There is the main reason why I love this book so much is, yes, it is my anti-heroes that I love so much, but it's one of the only books I've ever read that actually has stuff that affects the rest of the Marvel Universe. Like, it splinters down. Okay, Rick Remender does write that Uncanny Avengers.
But it doesn't matter who writes it, it's still cool.
But it's good because he's like, you know how everyone fucking bigs up Bendis about how he sows seeds and makes his really long stories, like, you know, that really awesome book All New X-Men that went fucking nowhere.
Nothing's happening.
Whereas Rick Remender's quite clearly, I mean, this is the first story arc and it's affecting Uncanny Avengers last year.
Yeah.
So, you know, the whole Unity Squad where it was mutants and Avengers together to try and blah blah blah, which led to Havoc being the leader instead. And there's so much stuff. For me, I had such a fucking nerd boner because they end up in Age of Apocalypse timeline.
Yeah.
And Nightcrawler comes back with them, and Nightcrawler's dead at this point. But
that never happens in comics.
But it's not the same Nightcrawler, obviously.
Yeah. And
he's there in the cave type thing, and Kitty Pryde just happens to be there. And she runs up and hugs him. He's like, "Oh my God, Colonel!"
He's like, "No!"
And he just pushes her away. It's like, "I'm not who you think I am." And he's just like, "Yeah!" And he's so badass. He's so badass. He's got fucking swords and he's bouncing all over the place. And it's like, this is like what the characters are capable of when they're actually being serious and badass and cool. The amount of videos we've done where that's been the case of we need something to make a difference. Infinity is going to make a difference. What the fuck happened in Infinity?
I've read that 4 times just because I'm trying to understand what happened.
Secret Wars is going to make a difference. As far as I'm aware, all that happened was Miles Morales is in the fucking normal universe, and Old Man Logan.
Is it? Oh, is it Secret? Which one's the one I've got there? Which is okay, Secret Invasion.
Not that.
Yeah,
not the original Secret Wars.
Right.
The new one that happened. They had these battle zones thing where they had different worlds, and they had like Planet Hulk world.
Right, like in DC's Convergence.
Yes.
Okay, they just
they happened at the same time.
Right. Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Did they have one writer for both those?
See, Old Man Logan was great.
Yeah.
And that might be a video for another time. The Civil War that they did was great because it was this Civil War didn't end. This is what's happened because it didn't end. And obviously that did so well that they did this whole new Civil War 2, which I'm not buying.
You know what like one of my favourite scenes is in any Marvel book, like my favourite like outright scene. The bit in Secret Invasion when Nick Fury's there and the aliens come down and they're talking about like how they've been there manipulating stuff like we are your gods, and Nick Fury just goes, "Here's my god. He's got an hammer," and Thor's there like this. I was like, that's for me, like that's like one of the greatest scenes.
For like the first time, probably ever, you mentioned something in comics, and I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's it. Where he's just standing behind like, he's like, "There's my god."
Well, the funny thing is, because it's X-Force and Deadpool is an X-Force. In the Deadpool book that was running at the time, the first volume, the first story arc is Secret Invasion. And behind the scenes, it's actually Deadpool that saves the day and does everything.
I love
Norman
that.
Osborn steals it from him, and then obviously he's.
I love it when they do that. Like, I love the fact that like one of my favourite story arcs in comics, one of my favourite actual events is the Battle of the Atom event that was across the all new X-Men and Uncanny X-Men. Even though it didn't have an impact on the universe massively, it was still a really interesting story, and it didn't matter that it didn't have a big impact because they never said it would. It was just like we're dealing with this shit, and it spilled out. But the thing I love about it,
with the timeline.
Well, yeah, that's basically that was basically the bit that I was like, you know what, no more. The basically X-Men was like, no more timeline fuckery.
Maria Hill.
Yeah.
Fucking Hank.
Yeah, she's just Hank McCoy. She literally flips a desk.
Wolverine I can deal with. Yeah. But Hank McCoy, and they're just like, wow.
But like, the thing I love about that book is I love the companion book, where the Dupe series that run alongside, because after, like a year after the run finished, they did a Dupe run that was set at the same time, and it was about how the whole thing was all kind of like sorted out by Dupe, and no one knew, and it's just like this weird story of Kitty Pryde and Dupe doing weird stuff that fits in at the same time. Like, you're like, the fuck?
You think Deadpool breaks the fourth
wall? Dupe literally
rips
the panel open and goes down a hole. Dupe arm. If you ever, you know what, we should do that for the next show because that's such a great book. But Dupe is amazing. I love Dupe. One of my favourite and then least used characters of the X-Men universe. But yeah, all in all, I don't have a lot of positive to say about X-Force. Is it Uncanny X-Force Volume 1?
Yeah. There's stuff that builds this. I mean, we were talking about events because you got a new book. You know, Secret Invasion leads to Civil War, leads to fucking Avengers vs. X-Men and all that kind of stuff, and it's like, and like all of this feeds into this kind of book, which is what I actually like. I know it's not easy for someone to pick up and read, but as someone who does read all this stuff, I want events and things to have an impact on the story.
I'm gonna end. We could end the video, but I want to give my top tips. If you watch this video because you've used the word apocalypse and you've come to this video because of the word apocalypse. Because you've watched a recent film and you haven't read comics but you want to, here's what you do. Okay, start reading in trades. Don't buy singles, buy a trade. That way you get the complete story. Okay. Now read House of M first. Not because it'll make a lot of sense to you, because you'll be like, what the fuck is this? But because it'll introduce you to a lot of characters very fast. And then you can go, okay, I really enjoyed it. Like, that book was weird, but I really like this character.
If you find it confusing, it's meant to be.
Yeah, everyone's confused. Like, literally, even the main characters at one point don't know what's happening. If they don't know what's happening, why should you? But the reason I say read House of M is because it exposes, I think it shows off some of the characters in the best way. Like, it shows the absolute evolution of Cyclops. It shows the absolute evolution of all these characters. So, it's a good starting point, in my opinion. This is only an opinion. It's a good starting point for people who are new to the Marvel universe, and it's a good way of going, well, I really like this character. So then you can go to Wikipedia and find out what to read, then buy a trade paperback. If you want to read current timeline, if you're actually interested in reading, like, forget the old timeline, I want the current Marvel Now stuff, which is the current what's on the shelf, start with All New X-Men, because the very first story arc is amazing. It goes downhill from there a little bit, but the first story arc will introduce characters and make you care in a way that you won't if you jump in with other stuff. Anything to add? Anything else you should read?
I think if you're going to start reading current, you have to read Avengers vs X-Men, because the ending of that book affects the current timeline.
So yeah, the current timeline starts with Avengers vs
All New
X-Men.
X-Men and Uncanny X-Men were hand in hand, because you were getting one, I was getting the other.
Yeah.
And they cross over quite a few times.
Here's Avengers vs X-Men. This is what the cover looks like. There's another one where the verse is bigger than the A and the X. That's the one that's just the fight scenes. What you want is the one that's actually called Avengers vs X-Men, not AVX. That is the fights, which is still worth a read, but you want the story. It's Avengers vs X-Men you want.
And again, I strongly recommend that book.
Actually,
in general.
yeah, it's a good book, and I do like. I don't usually like Remender Jr.'s work on superhero books, but it really works in this book and Planet Hulk. If you want something non-X-Men related, read Planet Hulk. It's fucking brilliant. One of the best Marvel books ever
giving
printed.
away all videos that we could potentially be doing.
It's alright, guys.
Planet Hulk, you'll do that. That's
Edit it. Edit it, bitch.
So, Hicks fell a bit flat, which is a little bit good for me, because I was
Again,
hoping
don't you think though that my reasons for falling flat
Oh
make
yeah,
sense? Like
I'm not
context,
here arguing against your reasons. I'm like,
good,
yeah, that
I'd win
makes
the
sense.
fight.
Because at the same time, you can see why I like it.
Yeah.
So it shows that we actually do understand what each other likes and what we don't like, and why we feel the way we do about the book. And it's good, but for me, if you like Deadpool, it's definitely worth a read. If you like Wolverine, it's definitely worth a read. If you're interested in just the X-Force, especially Angel,
what a growth for the
because the next story arc is very Angel heavy.
Yeah.
Because he has to deal with all the fallout, and Apocalypse starts to worm into his mind a bit more and stuff, and it gets fucking amazing.
Anyway, we've rambled on far too long. The battery on this camera won't last much longer, neither will the memory card. So thank you very much for watching. Obviously you know where Mike's channel is, because this is where you're watching this fucking video. But you can find more of me on Twitter at HexDSL, and if you go to www.hexdsl.co.uk, you'll find all my Linux and gaming videos. Self-promote.
You can find his videos on his channel, which is just youtube.com.
HexDSL.co.uk.
Or HexDSL.co.uk. That's much easier.
Yeah.
So,
costs me £9 a month, £9 a year that does.
So thank you for checking out the video. Hopefully we'll get another one out to you soon, and we'll keep doing this on a regular basis. That's the plan anyway.
Stay funky. Where's my fucking revolution?
Revolution died.